All right. Hopefully that worked. You guys heard that a bit. Great to see you guys. It's been a darn good week actually. So it's really nice. Oh, great to see you, Tankrate. And I actually did. You're going to notice when we go to the narrative, or no, actually at the on the YouTube description, I just have you as Tank written down for the leaderboard for the trivia. Who or what am I in World War I? But I have amended your thing, so it does say Tankrate. Great to see you, Charles Latora. Great to see you, Tolemykus, the leader, currently right now. Brian R. Smith as well. I don't know if you're getting the same type of weather in Montreal as we are in Ottawa. It's interesting. Oh, wow. I didn't know that you also had the Western Front you were doing. I just thought you just had the Eastern Front going on. But you've got the intro Tannenberg on the table. You know what? I like it. I don't know about you, but what I love about that... it's just so nice. It's just a nice little footprint as far as I'm concerned. And I think I'm missing some. Great to see you as well, Zoe Dufour. And great to see you as well, Meandering Mike, for sure. What can I say? This is going as per bloody usual. There's no way in hell I'm going to be able to, and I'm not even including the after hours show. That's because obviously I didn't do one last week. But there's a ton of material, so let's get to it I want to get to it rather quickly. There's some things I did put in bold. I want to make sure without a doubt that I get that I get those things there for sure. All right, so that's it. Yeah, I'm going to stop playing around with the comment type stuff and actually focus on what we should be focused on. All right, here, let me present the screen. Gamers with Coffee, Ashley, great to see you. Morning, all. It's wonderful to see you. And like I said, it's just neat that you're even if you're not here, you're constantly here every week with Sharon and me. Well, you know, what does it say? It comes through with our little Big Bertha battle message. So here we go. I want to share the screen here, and off we go. Yeah, there's just so much stuff to talk about, but I'm darn happy about it. So please let me know if you find it too small, whatever. I certainly want to get through this. Like I said, I did pop on a few things that are in bold. One monster thing is, and whether or not William Arends shows up on the live stream today, is that there was, I think I've met, well, anybody that's been following the show, for goodness sakes, knows that we've been talking about watching, more or less in real time, the city of Berlin, Ontario, change their name to Kitchener. We know it's going to change to Kitchener because we're 100 years in the future. And William Arends is living in Kitchener right now. So that's what's been so really fascinating. Anyways, it finally happened. It's not ratified, but yesterday they did pick Kitchener, and they're sending it off to the Lieutenant Governor General and Council, and we'll go off to that and take a look at that as well. And also that I found something fantastic as far as I'm concerned. It's been 2 weeks ago. I don't know what in the world I did with the fact checker. I did see that I wanted to find out how much flipping water or just things in general, how much things are being consumed, you know, by the armies and whatnot. So I just very quickly just took looked up online this week, and it was like on the average, they say the average person needs about 3.5 liters of water per day. It seems that around that time, the German infantry division was about 15,000 men. And like I said, maybe we'll have to do a fact checker on this one. But there was about 50 German infantry divisions at Verdun during this time. And so that comes out to about 750,000 men. And if you can just them, we're not talking horses or anything else, and not even the other side, that's 2,625,000 liters of water per day. I don't understand how you could even get that amount of water to people, but it's just mind-boggling. Please let me know. Oh my God, there you are, William Arends. Super great to see you, and thank you so much for all the material that you provided to me last night and this morning. And I'm going to say this again. You're right now at Crystal Beach, Fort Erie, Ontario. I'm watching with my family, grandson Iggy, and nephew Fabrizio. Nice to see you, Iggy and Fabrizio in a weird way. You know what I mean, like virtually here. Tolemykus says, changing from Berlin to Kitchener took my breath away. Yes, and well, we're going to find out about it in spades today. I'm going to say this again, William Arends. At any time, do you go, you know what, Chris, I don't want to do this anymore, of like contributing material every week with the ATA or whatever? That's fine. I'm just grateful that you're part of the group. That's what you've, this contribution, this sharing has just been fantastic. So thank you so much. Remember, the Battle of Krithia was the last battle for Big Bertha Bingo. Jeremy has come through again. Like I said, she brought a battle. He or she brought a battle in on her leg. And I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I'd said, "Oh, I'm always trying to pick like obscure battles that I don't know about." I obviously didn't do that obscure, because the one I just randomly picked this week was the Battle of Jutland, or actually it was 2 weeks ago, because I thought we were going to do a live stream. But I'm going to do the Battle of Jutland for two reasons, well, three actually. One, because Tank Wright is here, and he's a big Great War at Sea fan. He's been helping me out massively with it. So I'm super thankful for that. Secondly, because I was watching the Andrew Chung videos, his playlist of the Great War at Sea Jutland a little while ago, and they're really darn good. And I contacted him and asked him if I could put a little bit of his video on our thing without, getting in trouble for copyright violation. And he was like, "Go for it." So that's the second thing that we get to pop. I get to pop in there to show, which I think would be nice. So yeah, last round's champion was Meandering Mike. And right now, which the first time ever, which is neat, we've had other people pop in, like Chrispy Galactic's been around, up for a tiny little bit and whatnot. But Tolemykus, man, you popped it up. Okay, we're going to do a slight change today, and I hope it's not going to drive you nuts. I'll have to put it in the thing. I just thought it's just because I ran into a lot of interesting people in the past couple of weeks, historically, whatever. Like just even little off to the side bits, like with the Margaret Macmillan book, and she starts talking about Otto von Bismarck, and I don't really know too much about him. I mean, obviously I knew that he, had a big, huge influence on the formation of Germany and so on and so forth, and all the treaties and whatnot. And William II didn't like him very much. Well, actually, William I didn't seem to like him very much either. I will just say this on a side note. I forgot to mention that Harro Bosma will not be here today. He contacted me. He's celebrating his 17th wedding anniversary today. So right on, Harro. Well, obviously, you got your priorities straight, that's for sure. And him and his wife are off on a little mini vacation. So I hope they have a fantastic time celebrating their time together with their special partnership, their special friendship. So the ATA, and like I said, I just put this off to the side. Do not forget William's pictures, because William Arends, you sent me a ton. The pinup guy, the gal, and the guy of the week. We'll see. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff I want to get through, and so we may not get to this bit. I certainly hope we get to at least chit-chat a tiny little bit about the Soldiers game. Not for a variety of reasons. One, because, well, I've been playing it too. There's been a lot of feedback, comments on the YouTube channel and whatnot. I've also been talking with Meandering Mike about it off and on. And I've been reading a lot of the forum posts, and yet again, I don't seem to be reading anything bad about it. And I'm like, wow, did you ever snag a good game to try on a tactical level? And I would like to go and take a look at some of the other battles that are set up. Like the one they were saying that one's called, the one I was looking at was Le Cateau, I thought would be interesting. And the guy said, yeah, this is one that in the forums, a lot of people mention that they like playing often, because it's a monster tactical game in a sense, which is interesting, because earlier on in the morning, I was thinking, I wonder if you could make like a monster, like a big version if you had multiple maps or something, but maybe some people would be like, well, what's the point? But I'm like, well, don't people play that Goss game, which is kind of like similar to that? William Arends says, my wife, Marisol, daughter, Emily, and her partner, Edgar, are adding to your live stream audience as well. Awesome. Meandering Mike says, greetings to Marisol and Emily. Yeah, this is awesome. I really like this. So I'm hoping we do get to talk a little bit more about the Soldiers game. Also that I'm starting to, yes, I understand that it's that game is 1914 to 1915. But I'm like, could you modify it slightly? It seems like it would be nice to talk about it, is what I'm saying. So here's the bread and butter of what I really want to make sure that we get into very quickly. So I have contacted Paul Hederer to see if he'll come back on our show. Oh, no, irony, I will say this, which is interesting, because I was talking about you guys last night at the World War I Historical Association Fireside Chat. It's a quarterly that happens, and it was a weird one last night because we had to pick Randy, the president, who was also the host, asked us to pick one of our favorite Great War songs or whatever. Of course, I picked Hanging on the Old Barbed Wire, the one that I got Tin Whistle Traveler to get me some tabs for, and so on and so forth. I don't know if it was a long weekend or what, or if it was the topic, but there was only 3 of us last night. It was really strange. He was actually going to cancel, and I was kind of like asking, I was like, well, maybe we could just do like a shortened version of it or whatever. And he had technical difficulties. It was ironic. We couldn't hear anything, and it was like we're doing a thing on songs. But I was mentioning, like we were just trying to fill in the air and talking about stuff. And then I was mentioning, about us doing a show, and he's like, well, what do you mean by we? And so I went into, about, what we do kind of thing. So anyways, Paul Hederer has agreed to come back on our show. And I also mentioned that I was thinking that I think we're all in agreement that we'd like to have him back more than once. And I said, let's start figuring out the format. It's going to be another hour long. Do you want little segments? We can do anything we want. No one can stop us. So that probably will maybe happen in maybe mid-August. It's summertime, for goodness sakes. The Berlin name change, like I said, this is a monster. Good morning, Chrispy Galactic. Great to see you. And I've eaten up 12 minutes. The Bosnian crisis. That's because of, remember, was something I wanted to find out a bit more, especially a few weeks ago, when we were looking in the week that was, and I think it was Germany that mentioned some kind of note about referencing the British, the way they were reacting about the Bosnian crisis or something back in 1908 or something, or 09 or whatever. And I was like, I don't know anything about this. So, and I started looking a bit more, and I was like, I still want to find out more. And it's like, I was talking to Meandering Mike actually about it last week. I was like, the problem is a slippery slope. Next thing you know, I'm almost practically at the Crimean War, for goodness sakes. I'm like, whoa, like get back. And then when I picked up that companion book this week at the thrift store, and then I looked in at the Balkans, I went, you've got to be joking. And so I've scanned the images. I don't give an F. I'm going to scan that book from here to tomorrow and share whatever the hell I can with you guys, because it's fantastic. And I would like to go over that little bit. So hopefully you guys will indulge me with that bit. We'll go over a little bit of the dates and try to contextualize a bit more of how the heck this happened, or like how close they came to blows with Bosnia and Herzegovina back, before then. It could have been that back then. And this is just other stuff. If we pop into it, we do, we don't. Graf Felix von Luckner, the Sea Devil. He was at the Battle of Jutland, and then ended up becoming like a merchant raider guy, and he was actually half decent. The Mariner's Mirror, these are all in the sources and links. This is a fantastic nautical website. Holy smokes. I scanned an Africa map, which I think is kind of ironic. Yet again, I don't know what it is with you and me, William Arends, sometimes when you submit stuff, it's almost like we got some weird psychic link this way, and then you send me a bunch of pictures of some of maps of Africa and whatnot. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great, because that's the thing. Yet again, with we're getting over, with General Smuts and General Vindinter, I think, and the Belgians and the Portuguese, for goodness sakes, all coordinating towards trying to take over German East Africa. I was like, there's locations left, right, and center. I'd like to find out more. I want to see them. And yet again, here's another thing which I thought would be the Volta Bani anti-colonial war, which is on Western Africa area. I don't know anything about. I don't know if you guys know about that as well. There's tons of little wars going on all over the place during this period. And I'm like, would this be also an interesting battle to game? I don't know. Also, this is a shout out towards Meandering Mike. The Battlefield Guide last week released a documentary on the Lost Battalion. I know you've got a little spot for them, so I thought I wanted to bring that up. I mentioned the Fireside Chat, the Trench Mapper. If we get to it, that's the Western Front Association Trench Mapper site. Remember, they've upgraded it something significantly. I went to take a look at it this week again, and it is neat what they've done. So I'm hoping to goodness we can go and take a look at that. The update on my research on the Battle of Lake Norak, which was the failed battle. Remember that the Russians tried to undertake against the Germans in response to the French saying, please, please, please help us out. We're getting our arses kicked in BERTHA. It went horribly wrong. The morale just collapsed yet again, even more so for the Russians. And that has massive implications for the Brusilov offensive. And it's even yet again talking about it with Meandering Mike about whether or not, would the Brusilov offensive had even happened if the Battle of Lake Norak would have been successful? Who knows? There's all these things. That's on another thing, which is why I was like, God, do I ever understand why the necessity of gaming, historical wargaming, as far as I'm concerned, because now you can actually start going, okay, it's not going to give you heck, we all know this too. The actual generals in real life did this. They actually wargamed, for goodness sakes, and often didn't listen to what the advice or the outcomes were going. They were disregarding because it didn't go their way. And I'm thinking, well, this is why we should be wargaming things such as this. If we could find a game system or some mechanisms that could model the Battle of Lake Norak somewhat appropriately, maybe then we could start seeing what ramifications that would have had for the Brusilov offensive and so on and so forth. Especially if you start putting it into a larger context of oh my God, I actually start moving some forces from the Western Front to, which we see in real time right now is happening, for goodness sakes, with the Italians counterattacking the Austrians in the Italian front. The Brusilov offensive, for goodness sakes, that it's happening. And you can see the German troops are just being stripped away from Verdun. Wrong time. The Somme about to happen, my goodness. And that's just part. Remember, the French are going to launch their own little initiative as well. And this is a far away thing. It was something I'm really want to get into is communication and this overarching theme in success or failure. I want to always bring it back to communication and see if I can do that. Everything when I start looking at that. The Gettysburg, I know it's not Great War related, but I got a PBS notification today, and I know a lot of you guys are into Civil War and the Gettysburg thing. Charles Latora says, do we all know about the upcoming game from Compass, Trench Raid? No. No, I don't. So thank you for telling me. So that's it. So let's go to how the heck am I going to? Okay, I'm going to stop the screen. Get back to me here for a second. Yeah, I can do that because I can switch over and don't have to worry about whatever. Like I said, the who or what am I in World War I's a bit weird today. I guess I called it a mix and match. And because I just was like, well, let's do something a bit different. So let's see if I can do it. I'm going to present the screen, stop the screen, present the screen, share the screen. I'll try to pop them in here. So I just thought I'd want to try something a little bit different. I hope you guys can see this. So I thought if you guys can do this, I'll figure out some way. Maybe I'll put it I'll try to copy and paste it and put it in the comments. So basically, I guess you can kind of get the idea. You've got 6 names there and 6 things that is attributed to a certain person. Yes, of course, everybody may have loved to have hunt. All 6 of them could have, but only 1 out of those 6 did those other things, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't know if this is going to work or not, but that's what you're getting today for the who or what am I in World War I. So I'll try to figure out how to pop this in the comments because I have to go and do some other stuff, obviously, with the thing here. So give me a second here. Where the hell did I do with it? I don't know if I don't know if I can. Oh, darn it, you silly goose. So I don't know. I don't think I have it in text anymore. I think I did it all. I did it all graphically. So hopefully that's not going to drive you nuts, or I'll leave it on for a little while I go and find find the other thing that I wanted to talk about. So please try to guess away, or I don't know how to do this. But good luck to you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Oh yeah, maybe we should do the. I'll do the Big Bertha. The Big Bertha battle here. So come here, Jeremy. What is it today? Well, I know what it is today. I think I already told you guys. It's the Battle of Jutland, and so that I can go off and show you the Andrew Chung stuff and whatnot. So that would be battle number 39. I don't know if you guys can see that. So there you go. 1916. It was, you know, the irony is when I went to go and take a look at my little bingo card thing, I'm like, what year is that? I'm like, Chris, you should know this, for God's sakes. You should, I mean, come on, you were just doing the Battle of Jutland. All right, so I'm going to go in. I've already got his video primed. We're only going to watch about 3 minutes. It's, I think, a really good 3 minutes to hopefully show you what I think is, he's just a really good gamer and a really good presenter. And I was like, I want to obviously spread the love. I want to make sure that other people know that he's around. And if you want to, you know, watch his stuff, go for it. All right, so I'm going to stop the screen. And I think I've already got him primed here. So, yeah, all right. And then, like I said, we'll watch about 3.5 minutes. I hope it'll go well. I'm going to get rid of me. I'm going to make him giant sized. Did I? Hopefully, let me know if I don't know if I hit the. Well, we'll find out. You'll please tell me if you don't hear him.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the continuation of my Essence War scenario playthrough from Great War at Sea, Jutland. Now, I'd ended the previous video on a bit of a cliffhanger when my squadron had successfully found the coast defense ship SMS Siegfried with a single torpedo boat escort. Talk about the luck, eh? However, I begin this scenario with a bit of a moral conundrum. I was looking at the rule book last night, funnily enough, to check on something completely different, and I discovered a little bit of a problem. Now, those of you who remember the circumstances under which our two forces here sighted one another will remember that I checked for the effects of fog on sightings. And on page 6 of the rulebook, it said that there was no modifier as a result of fog. However, when I looked last night on page 14 of the rulebook, it said that there is a negative modifier to the sighting roll on account of fog. And because the Central Powers player rolled a 4, the moral conundrum I face is that if you follow the rules as given on page 14, then no sighting should have taken place. Now, as the Russian player, of course, I want the sighting to take place. I want this. I want to go over there and give those whatnots a damn good sinking. But equally, equally legitimately, while I'm busy saying that, you know, we should really go with the interpretation as given on page 6 of the rules, the German AI could, with equal legitimacy, put their hands up and say, well, no, we should actually go with the interpretation as given on page 14, which, to be honest, makes a bit more sense, given that you'd expect fog in twilight to have a bit of an effect on your ability to sight one another. The other problem I have is, given the way I've set up, you know, my AI and everything, I don't really want to delay proceedings by going back and re-rolling and reassigning ships but I have seen the Germans now. This is the problem, so I know what their force comprises. So to get out of my conundrum, I'm going to fall back on the age-old wargaming solution of having a roll-off between the two powers. So if the Central Powers win their roll, I'm going to say that because of the visibility and the weather conditions, we get a single round of combat, and then the Germans disappear into the murk, and equally they lose sight of us. If the Russians win the roll-off, then we get a full-length battle, and it's hard luck for the Germans. Option 1 isn't as nasty for the Germans as it sounds, because yes, I have many opportunities to damage them even in a single round of combat. But the converse of that is that they have sighted me regardless of what happens. And that's going to have a major implication for the campaign. So let us have the dramatic roll-off. Just turn around and look at the dice. So, red dice, Central Powers, blue dice, Russia. Come on, God, be with the Tsar. God is with the Tsar. We are going to get our full-length naval battle.
All right, hold on here. I got to stop the screen. So there you go. I'm glad you guys got to see a bit of Andrew Chung's stuff. Yeah, like I said, I found it really, really enjoyable. Smuts plus Mercedes. Charles Latora. Yes, oh my gosh. You know what? I'm just going to let it go. And then I'll tell you guys later, yes or no kind of thing. So this is interesting that you saw that you. It'll be neat to see what how we. Okay, because we're running out of time, and I really want to make sure we get we nail a few things here. You know what? Actually, Charles Latora, I'm glad that you just chit chatted a tiny bit, because we're going to be. I don't know if you remember, would have been 2 weeks ago, I guess, during the after-hours show, you were mentioning, boy, it seems like there seems to be a weird number here, like it's awfully low officers being taken prisoners compared to non-officers. And Meandering Mike was mentioning, well, maybe it's because the officers took off when they're flipping horses. They weren't stupid, that type of stuff. Brian R. Smith, Smuts in the Boer War. You got that one. Gamers of Coffee Ashley, got to have to get back to work. Have a good day. I hope you have a great time. Meandering Mike, no, you didn't miss the trivia questions. I'm an idiot. William Arends is the one who's doing it. I guess the way my brain was thinking about it, of like, so yeah, here, I'll put the picture back on again. Hold on here. Yeah, I should have put it in. I should have thought about this a little ahead of time. Sadly, I've forgotten the other clues. So there you go. You guys can see it. So what I'm asking is put a name to, so you go like 1A or 2B or whatever. And yes, like I was saying, everybody could have loved to hunt. All 6 of them could have been amazing hunters. But only one of those 6 on the left loved to hunt and was not doing those other things, if that makes any sense. And I gave that one for Gamers with Coffee Ashley, just to give her the idea of what I was kind of doing, which was Manfred von Richthofen loved to hunt. So you would say like 4D, for example. So there you go. Take a screenshot. Oh, you guys said yes. Thank you, Brian R. Smith. There you go, people. Take your little whatever, or use your free form snippet or whatever the hell it is. So there you go. And I'm going to get rid of it because I want to get towards the other stuff here. So if you remember, Charles Latora, you were mentioning, hey, there's a bit of a discrepancy. So I was after that, and I said, oh, I'm going to go and see if I can go take a look. Now, when you see the data set, which I'm going to show you in a minute here. Hold on, I got to get to it here. Officer percentages. Now I'm going to show it to you widescreen, not the whole screen at once, and then I'll bring it back into the smaller whole screen, so that way you guys can you'll be able to. It's just if I show it to you whole screen, it's not going to be all that big, and I want you guys to see the numbers. But if I show it to you widthwise, you're going to see the whole bloody thing. But yet again, I want you to see it later on. You've got the idea. You'll see. So, and remember that the data set that I'm using is really dinky. So it's take that with a grain of salt. But hopefully you're going to get see some interesting things, I think. And so yeah, Charles Latora, here you go. Should it be John Davey, not Daly? Oh, I'm sorry, Brian R. Smith. I'll tell you one thing. It's if you think I'm going to use me over you, you can forget it. So if you say it should be John Davey, then you're darn right it is. Actually, I think you're right because, well, you are right. I'm not. Okay. So here we go. Google Pixel phones have crap shot mechanics. So Anyway, so I went and I was like, well, let's go and see if we can start taking a look at some percentages. Now, I did know that the Order to Die book had the number of officers and non-officers listed. Like I said, this is a tiny data set, so I'm using this as the comparison here, and it's at 3.2%. When you see the bottom bits for the Eastern thing, I got 2 extra entries this week, so the percentage is a little off, but it won't be that bad. Clark Commando 1983. Hey guys, I'm here for a moment. Great to see you, man. Super great to see you. So here we go. So Charles Latora. So what I did for the past few weeks, my God, am I ever like just every time I'm looking into the war summary or the article or the headlines there for the on the Globe, I'm like just so wishing they can show me, give me numbers for the officers and non-officers. So here we go. I just wanted you guys to take a quickie look. So as you can see here, I just going down the percentages. I wanted to see if, like I said, it's a tiny data set, but oh boy, it would be neat to see if there is a pattern somewhere. There's the Italian, only 2 entries I could find, and they're massive differences. So it's like, boy, you really yet again take that with a grain of salt. And yet again with the Western one. And there's your averages. So it's 1.5 to 2.9% officer to non-officer prisoner or taken. And like I said here, I'm going to go to a smaller bit. But like I said, Charles Latora, I'm hoping that this will be a continued thing. I would really like to do this. Hey, Mike, Chris, you should create a World War I RPG. Oh, Clark Commando 1983, don't even start talking to me about that. I'm desperate to do something like that. And actually, it's, actually Zoe Dufour and her husband, Stefan, I'm trying to get them to play Never Going Home, which we'll see if that happens. So anyways, glad to have done this. So there we go. The next thing I wanted to get into, because we're 28 minutes into, is we're going to the Berlin name change. That's the big honker. And after that, we're then going to crank off, hopefully, to the soldiers game super quick. And, like I said, 4 trillion things I could talk to you about, and there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do it within 1 hour. No way. But I'm going to give it a shot here. Oh, my God. And what am I saying? Yes, I think it's called Never Going Home. Meandering Mike would know about it as well. They've got it's from Wet Ink Publishing or something like that. Yeah, it's kind of like Clark Commando 1983. It would be something like Stranger Things meets World War I. It's basically a rift. We've created the conditions so conducive for these disgusting, horrible creatures to come by all our death and destruction that they do show up. And one of the monsters is a freak and a half. I'm like, oh, it's just so gross. It's basically a blind anteater that hops from trench to trench, slurping up infantrymen with its giant tongue. I'm like, oh my God. And just that type of stuff is just like, wow. Anyways, let's go to the Berlin stuff very quickly. And then, oh my God, like I said, I'd love to show the Bosnian crisis thing and so on and so forth. Let's move here then. What Ink Games? Thank you very much, Meandering Mike. So, nope, that's the wrong one. There we go. And where am I? Where are we? Display options. I just want to make sure that we're going to do the width. No, maybe not. Maybe I don't have to do the width because it's too small here. So this week, like I said, finally, it's happened. We knew it was going to happen. Mutated. I don't know what that is, Tolemykus, but it looks interesting. And Meandering Mike was even mentioning that they have one supplement that's on a U-boat or something got to do with U-boats. I'm like, what the hell? That's insane. All right, so let's go to share the screen. There you go. So that was the first article that I noticed this week or last week that they were getting close to it. It was either named Waterloo or No Amalgamation. And it's due to the fact that they are really Berlin at that time is really, well, still is very close to Waterloo. And I guess a lot of them are like, hey, maybe we should amalgamate. The politicians said no. No amalgamation, says Berlin Council. Special meeting tomorrow night to choose 6 names to vote on. we're going to take a look quickly at the articles. And then Berlin to choose from 6 names. Like I said, we knew that was going to happen. And then this is something that knocked me sideways. So last week I got an e-reader. I just had enough of dealing with printing out articles. Printing out articles and then storing them, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. Just bite the bullet, get an e-reader, convert the PDFs and whatnot into EPUBs, and that way you can bring the articles around. Obviously, I know I'm going to do that. I went and took a pokey to see what the World War I Great War books they had available on Kobo, and that's it. Meandering is Never Going Home, Tears in the Sea. Oh boy, I want to get that one. Then I see this. I went, are you effing kidding me? You've got to be joking. There's a book, The Battle of Berlin, Ontario, a historical drama about the name change and all the brouhaha that happened. And I went, oh my goodness gracious me, I've got to get this book. So I've got it on my e-reader and I'm reading it right now. And then many favorite Kitchener. So you can see that that's, I've written this all down here. And then Kitchener's choice of the Berlin people. And I'm going to stop sharing this screen for now. And then I'm going to pop in the Berlin name change stuff. Alrighty. So here we go. William Arends says they're still debating amalgamation in the region of Waterloo. Whoa, that's so cool. And I'm going to also read a tiny little tidbit from the book for sure. So there we go. So here we go. These are the articles that I saw. They're not long. We're doing still pretty good. Berlin to choose from 6 names. Council takes 3 hours to reach a decision. Well, you're going to see this, which was a bit of a head scratcher, and that's why I'm so glad I got this book and started reading it, because the author mentions it in the book. He's like, there's a lot of stuff that was going on, a lot of political jockeying, a lot of people taking advantage of what was going on, a lot of people hijacking this, getting their agenda through, and a lot of, we're going to read it, and it's maybe a bit of an eye-opener for you, William Arends, of the town that you're in now, what it was like back then. The city council tonight took over 3 hours to decide on the 6 names to be submitted to the electors of the city on Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next. And at the conclusion of their balloting, agreed upon the following: Brock, Kitchener, Corona, Adnak, Keawanna, or Benton. Not one of the 6 names selected by the Committee of 99 several weeks ago was in the running tonight. That had that was a bit of a head scratcher for me. I was, what the hell's going on here? And that's why when I read that author, the bit about the author saying there's a lot of people doing, their own agenda, I went, I wonder if this is a bit of that. The only restrictions observed by the aldermen was that no name was to have a duplicate in Ontario. Each name selected had to meet with the approval of the majority of the members of the council. Over 200 names were submitted to the scrutiny of the aldermen when they commenced operations. Many favored Kitchener, Berlin, Ontario, June 22nd. A large number of manufacturers and businessmen interviewed today favored the selection of the name Kitchener for the city, it being looked upon as an exceptional opportunity to perpetuate the name of the late Secretary of War. And we had mentioned that earlier as I said, oh my God, he's going to drown this year. It's not a coincidence. I mean, come on. Kitchener is the choice of the Berlin people. We'll ask the Lieutenant Governor and Council to ratify the name. Providing the Lieutenant Governor and Council ratifies the bylaw changing the name of this city, the name Berlin will be wiped off the map of Canada and the city will hereafter be known as Kitchener. The electors have voted in favor of Kitchener with Brock as second choice and Adani as third. The votes on Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and today for the various names submitted by the City Council were as follows: Kitchener 346, Brock 335, Adani 23, Benton 15, Corona 7, Keawanna 3, with a total of 729. It is expected that the City Council will pass the bylaw to change the name of the city at its next meeting next Monday evening, after which it will be forwarded to the Lieutenant Governor and Council for final ratification. As a result of the City's Council petition being turned down by the Private Bills Committee in March, yet again, maybe another thing of people showing, pushing their own agenda through. I remember reading a bit about that. There was a pushback. A lot of people did not want the name changed to Berlin. They were proud of that place, that name. A special act was passed on the last day of the session of the legislature permitting a municipality to change its name, providing there's on the last day, providing there's a majority of votes in favor. How many times does that happen on a Friday afternoon? And giving the lieutenant governor and council power to sanction the new name recommended by the municipal council. All right, so I can stop that screen for now. Done. Never Going Home could play it via Zoom. Yes, there's all kinds of amazing. Oh my gosh, what we're going to talk. We'll talk. And there was also actually, darn it, I can't remember. He's going to do it again. He was doing a live RPG through his thing, and it seemed to work not too bad. Okay, so we've done that. We're going to eventually get to the ATA, but I also wanted to I wanted to read very quickly a little bit of that book, and then that'll be that. Sorry, I couldn't pop it on here. William Arends says, Brock was an Anglo-Canadian hero of the War of 1812. Iggy and I always visit sites of that war when we are on the Niagara frontier. Oh, nice. Yes, I don't know too much about Upper Canada War of 1812. I'm much more Lower Canada. So it's neat, almost like, Western Front, Eastern Front kind of thing. So here, this tiny little bit, just to give you a bit of context of what it was like. Whoa, this is an account of what actually happened in Berlin, Ontario between November 1st, 1915 and January 1st, 1917. So it's still going to go on for a little bit longer. It is the story of how a city of solid, hardworking people became nationally known as a place where law and order had broken down, where it was dangerous to walk the main streets in daylight, where clubs and shops were wrecked by mobs. A clergyman and his family were assaulted in their own home. I was just like, wow, I'm like, what? That's not Canada, for goodness sakes. All right, so we've done that. I'm really happy I got to show that. Okay, I did that. You know what? I know damn it. It's going to eat up some time here. Well, maybe we'll just put it off to the side because I do want to go to the week first, and then we'll go off to the other tidbits. Oh my God! And we didn't even talk about why you saw the screenshot of the people. Maybe I'll let you guys. I don't know how. Maybe it was just it's just not going to work this week. But I do want to. Yeah, there's just like I said before. There's no bloody way in hell I'm going to be able to get everything popped in. So we're going to go to present the screen, share the screen. Here we go to the week. Yep, I want to get into make sure that we get into the good stuff before we get off to after hours. And there was a lot of stuff that went on this week. Well, you're going to see later on. I mean, as we know, my God, the Battle of the Somme is going to kick off on Monday. And you can see what's happening. All week, the artillery barrage is just going berserk. And I'm just blown away that this information is just being, published all over the place. It's just amazing, just mind-boggling. Anyways, June 23rd, Germans take hills 320 and 321 at Thielmont Fort. French retake Fleury. Germans are repulsed at Les Epages and on left bank of the Meuse. Russians take Kipelon, Bukovina. Heavy fighting near Pinsk, which is, for some of you, sorry if I'm being, not trying to be condescending, but it'd be like way up in East Prussia. Clark Commando 1983, hello from Ontario, Canada. William Arends says to you, total prisoners reported since June 4th, 144,000 with 4,031 officers and 219 guns. Russians repulsed several attacks south of Trebizond. Città de Messina, Italian auxiliary cruiser, and a French torpedo boat Fourche sunk by mine in the Strait of Otranto. The GER steamer, I don't know what GER means, but I did see it later on. Oh, darn it. In, I think, the War Summary or somewhere. Anyways, I have to go and look that up later on. Steamer Brussels captured by a German torpedo boat destroyer. The 24th of June, embargo on the Greek shipping suspended. Yeah, it's because they gave in. Germans defeated on Lukigura River in German East Africa. General van de Winter drives the Germans back to Central Railway, German East Africa. Artillery preparations by Italians from Bretna to Dafi in the Trentino. Bulgarian troops cross the Greek frontier. Russians driven out of Bukovina. Wow. French counterattack. But you're going to start noticing things now. I'm telling you right now, even within the war summary, and we're going to notice it later on in a couple of days here, is you're going to start noticing repulsed a bit more with the Russians. And it's like the Brusilov offensive is already starting to run out of steam. Holy shit. Like, sorry, people, I shouldn't curse. French counterattack regained some ground in Verdun region. Germans reoccupy part of Fleury, making their farthest point of advance, and they're getting awfully close to their objective. But it stops, and look what happens. They just like we were saying, they bring troops. They're just sending troops. Well, they have to help out the Austrians, for God's sakes. June 25th, heavy fighting at Fleury and west of Thiamont. Preliminary British bombardment along the Somme front and northwards. Russians advance from Bukovina, fighting along the Dniester. Great Italian advance from the Bretna to the Adagi. Asagio retaken by the Italians. Roger Clement trial begins. Remember, that's the Irish dude. June 26th, general demobilization ordered in Greece. Germans threaten to stop the Swiss coal supply if their cotton purchases are not delivered. Russians advance west in northern Persia. Turks prepare to evacuate Mosul. Wow. Turks driven from Lake Urmia in Persia. French gain ground near Thiamont work. British patrols are very active. June 27th, Germans repulsed at Fleury. I wonder if British patrols, they also mean aerial patrols as well, because I know that the British guy that was in charge of the Air Force or the Air Corps was really focused on making sure they had their planes in the German skies, not the other way around. In other words, you go on the attack. Germans driven back in Riga and the Vinsk areas. Russians advance from Kolomia, Bukovina. Italians take Plesina and Arserio. Italians continue advance from the Bretna to the Adagi. The Chinese Navy threatens a revolt. Yeah, I got that in stars because I'm like, I got to go and find out what the heck that is. June 28th, Leibniz sentenced to 2 years, heavy labor and dismissal from the army. The British abandoned the Declaration of London. I want to find out. It's just little bits of hints there. I know that the Italians were trying to stick to their guns with that at some point, but this is all half baked in my head. So I want to go and find out more. Italians regain half of the trenches lost during the Austrian offensive, but not all. Italian cavalry reach Pediscala, northeast of Arserio. Heavy fighting on the Lutsk salient. Austrians defeated on a 25-mile front east of Kolomia with 10,000 prisoners taken by the Russians. Germans again driven back in the Riga district. Heavy fighting at Fleury and Hill 321. The Germans are repulsed northwest of Thiamont. Oh my goodness. June 29th, German, which is today. German first and second line trenches taken at Tahur. German attack on Hill 304 is repulsed. Germans repulsed northeast of Vilna. Turkish steamers sunk by Russians in the Black Sea. Roger Casement found guilty of high treason and is sentenced to death. U.S. demands apology from Austria for sinking of the Petrolite. All right, and I got that. We can stop that. We still got 12 minutes. This is awesome. We can still go and go to the soldiers thing. My God, I could actually even but I want to give my voice a little bit of a rest from reading. But I really, if we can, oh gosh, if we can sneak that in, take a look at the Bosnian crisis, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and how close they came to blows. Oh my gosh, I would be really, really happy about that. Brian R. Smith says there's a small section of Verdun, Quebec, referred to as Crawford Park, with street names after World War I names such as Lloyd George, Clemenceau, Foch, Foya. Wow! Oh my God, I've got to go and. I mean, my God, I could take the train to Montreal. Montreal's one of the most beautiful cities around, man. I should go and just get my butt over there. All right. What did I want to go? Yeah, let's go to the Soldier's Place and take a quickie look there. And also a bit about this controversy. I don't know if you want to call it. Well, maybe it is a little bit of a controversy. In the sense, remember I was mentioning that it says in, it does say in the, I'm going to get rid of me. so you guys can see a bit more. And I'll try to bump it up a bit, just to maybe 1. How about that? We'll go to that. Tell me if it's too dinky. It's down to the forums. I can't remember them all here. Was it more on the game scales here? Yeah. This person here talks about, he believes that, I'll try to bump it up so you guys can see it even a bit more here. There. Hopefully that helps. So this guy here, Paul Sims, mentions that he was always under the illusion that the game was 200 meters and perhaps in 20 minutes, whatever. And he was stunned when he noticed that it said 100 meters per hex and whatnot. Then he goes into, like I said, a pretty compelling argument about why he believes it's 200 meters, talking about the effective fire for British infantry and the machine guns and so on and so forth. Clark Commando 1983 says, hello, William. And so I was like, this is neat. And he also talks about, like, take a look at the towns and so on and so forth. They're pretty darn small. Now, I was going to play, or I was thinking about playing, I don't know if you guys mentioned, yes, I did mention it to you guys, or maybe I didn't. So I was thinking about doing the first Battle of Ypres, and this guy here, Ross Menzies, he goes through every single flippant scenario. It is awesome to see. But I wanted to try to do this one, the Battle of Le Cateau, and like I was mentioning earlier, I was thinking, boy, could you not do like a monster version of a tactical game? And he mentions that this one is an extremely popular one. And one of the reasons probably is the fact that it's got 56 German units against 32, and it's a big beast. Anyways, he's got some the guy does a really darn good job. And yet again, so I'm going to be able, what I'm going to be doing, I don't know if this one's a bit too much for me to, would be too much to bite, too much to chew or whatever. So I may go and try to grab a smaller scenario and see if I can get the rules down in my head a bit better. I will say this. I also want to a shout out to Craig McCulhey. I did it again. I say it nice and slow in my head, and I can get his name right. Craig McCulhey. Say I did it again. Craig Mulcahy. That's it, Mulcahy. Craig Mulcahy. Thank you for giving me the little sequence of events that you did for this. Yes, I'm going to do it right now. Will you have time for the AT? We're going to do it right now, William Ayers. Thank you for mentioning it. That's it. We're doing it right now. Especially due to the fact that you popped in some stuff about the Americans and the Mexicans, which I thought was great. Because as we know, they're coming awfully close to blows. Well, they are, and you have got a little bit more of the information of this. The 2 cavalry squadrons that vanished, that Pershing was worried had been slaughtered. So here we go. Where are you? I'm going to get rid of the Berlin name change. I'm going to get rid of the pinup guy. I'm going to get rid of the dude, and now we're going to go to your thing here. Yep. Oh yeah, we've got tons of time. Excellent. And there we go. So I put your stuff, William Arends, right here, and hopefully we'll go take a look at some of your pictures, and that'll be it. And then we'll go off to the after hours. I think that's a good way of doing it. Like I said before, nowhere near did I get to talk about what I would have loved to have talked about with you guys, but we'll just keep on trucking next week and go on. Here are the 2 excerpts from a journal entitled Das Volk. And it is described as an ultra-conservative Christian social outlet that was both ultra-nationalistic and a champion of traditional values as they were perceived in Teutonic Christianity. The first article, after short reports from the various fronts, concerns the housing of multi-children families that the newspaper finds to be an important resource of the nation, so long as they belong to the right ethnic group. The second report is about the post-war plans after an Entente victory, with particular disdain for the attitude of the French, though the English are also criticized for their arrogance as well. Das Volk, 10th of June 1916, daily dispatches from our headquarters. The Western Theater of War. In the Champagne, north of Péronne, a German reconnaissance unit pushed forward on a French position with 3 officers and 100 men taken as prisoners, as well as 4 machine guns. The unit then returned to its trenches according to plan. On the eastern theater of war, German and Austrian-Hungarian troops of the army of General Duke Bothmer have thrown back the Russian troop units northwest of Bukaz on the Stripa and in the Stripen in German. And in the course of the action, 1,300 Russians became prisoners. A home for families of warriors with many children. A great question must be asked about the welfare of the German people. Hold on, I just got to grab some water. As can be observed directly as to how the war, combined with other factors, has affected the strength of the German people that stand before us. It is an unfortunate reality that since the start of the 20th century, our people are not reproducing so much as they previously did. They must be helped to do so. Children are our greatest wealth resource. Thus, we have to treasure the fathers who have many children despite the anxieties of these days. These progeny-rich families of our nation have a great worry in obtaining proper housing for their children. This housing crisis is in addition to the trouble of finding affordable food and clothing for these families. It must be our goal to make every effort to strive to meet the needs of this great number of children, that at least in the question of adequate housing, they will not be an afterthought as concerns their housing conditions. Das Volk, 16th of June, 1916, Der Nachkrieg, the post-war. Our enemies have stamped out a new word, den Nachkrieg, après-guerre in English, the post-war. Behind this new word, they understand that there will be a worldwide trade war after the peace against the Central Powers that will be made primarily against the German Reich and Austria-Hungary. Their chief objective is through this conflict of commerce to deny Germany the ability to conduct world trade in the world economy. This would result, if successfully arrived at, in what the present world war already has nearly be led to, that in such an imagined post-war, Germany ceases to be a world power. If our enemies in the middle of this war need to conjure up such a post-war, and truly so actively that they are prepared to equip themselves to do that, thus it is an admission of their present-day weakness in making war, so that the post-war period will bring about what the war today has not delivered. The leaders on the other side, namely the French, push ever forward despite all evident developments, playing their war cards, assured that surely soon they will be celebrating a successful end of the war. However, their noisy proclaiming of victory rings hollow and empty, while close by the word après-guerre, post-war, is uttered. While others reply before victory is declared, it must be achieved through deeds. Paraphrasing the rest of the article, this war has proven the desire of the English to destroy their German competition at the same time that their Italian allies have admitted that German goods would be as valued by them after the war as they had been before. Germans should not be afraid of any long-term consequences of the war, since the rest of the world still understands the value and the importance of German goods and trading relationships. The next articles are from Berlin, from the Berlin paper concerning the troubles, there we are, for the USA on the Mexican border. Berlin's latest news, 25th of June, 1916, 2 American cavalry regiments destroyed. Washington, 24th of June, Reuters reports a laconic, terse, or concise dispatch from General Pershing's headquarters that has been made public states that in the Battle of Krithia, possibly 2 regiments of cavalry have been destroyed. This evident occasioned great suspense, as many recent incidents have brought the USA and Mexico to the brink of war. It is recalled in the report that only 7 riders came back from the battle. It is said that the Mexicans attacked the cavalry on their flanks. As this report was received in Washington, Wilson's Secretary of War was awakened and had a long discussion with him, the president. Reports received by telephone say that different states have ordered the commanders of their militias to feverishly work on to securing the lives of their people on or near the border as soon as possible. The president made it clear that only Congress has the ability to declare war, and the president cannot undertake to do so on his own. Berlin's latest news, 27th of June, 1916, Wilson's difficulties with Mexico. It is reported that after the delivery of a diplomatic note to Mexico, the situation has become more serious. The note stated that the conflict at Carrizal occurred after a series of orders had been given to attack the American troops, even if they were traveling in a direction that would move them across and away from the border. Wilson discussed the situation with the leaders of both the House and the Senate. After this discussion, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Mr. Stone, made no secret that war with Mexico was possibly unavoidable. Here are some vintage maps, and we're not going to get to it, Brian R. Smith, sadly. William Arends, but we're going to go to your pictures next week. I can bloody tell you that much. Brian R. Smith has got to go. Great show as always. Switzerland versus... Yes, I heard about that. That there's the Euro stuff is going on. Great to see you, Brian R. Smith. Hope you have a great time, and I hope to get to see you next week. All right, guys, I'm about to hold on here. I'm going to go and get rid of all kinds of crazy nonsense here and make sure I can go to my YouTube thingamabob. It's up there, and then I'll pop on. I'll pop on the After Hours show. Hold on here, and that'll be that. I'm going to turn into you guys, as in I'll just be a commenter, like a text commenter kind of thing. So hold on here. I got to get to my my playlists. There's the After Hours thingamajig. So yet again, yeah, like I said before, I knew there was no way in hell I was going to be able to get through all the stuff I wanted to. I'm just going to tack that on to next week, because I certainly want to get into the Bosnian crisis. That is not going to go away. And we're going to go over your stuff, all those pictures, William Arends and whatnot. And we didn't even get to, we didn't, a ton of things we didn't get to see. All right, hold on here. Yeah, I can present the screen now. So great to see you all. Thank you so much for showing up as per usual. It's wonderful. You guys are so motivating. It's not funny. I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. And that's it. Awesome. Fabrizio and Iggy are still watching with me, and now you're going to listen to me babble on for 40 minutes, reading the war summary stuff. Okay, hold on. I got to go and share the screen. All right. You guys can see that. Perfect. Now I'm going to go away. Okay. Great to see you guys. To the Galactic and of Jeddah, the principal seaport of the country. All right, here we go. The war summary for June 23rd to the 29th, 1916. The most significant news of the day is undoubtedly that which tells of a revolt against Turkish rule in Arabia and the capture of the holy city of Mecca and of Jeddah, the principal seaport of the country, situated on the eastern shore of the Red Sea, a little north of the latitude of Khartoum in the Sudan. The bulk of the population of Arabia is to be found on this eastern coast of the Red Sea. The Arabs are fierce and fanatical and have never submitted with good grace to the dominion of the Turk. Yemen, the most southerly of the provinces on the coast, has been in a state of chronic insurrection, and it is believed that only the free use of German gold induced the Arabs of Yemen to join the Turks in attacking the British settlements north of Aden. The revolt from Turkish authority is probably due in part to the drafting of the Arabs into the Turkish armies of Armenia. Some months ago, it was reported that thousands of the Arabs of the Red Sea littoral, as well as Mesopotamia and Syria, had been incorporated into von der Goltz's armies, and though thinly clad and unaccustomed to the cold, forced to fight in the mountains of Armenia against the Russians. Most of them perished, but enough returned to their homes to spread dissatisfaction against the Turk. Arabia is not heavily garrisoned, and the pashas in command have been holding down the population by the execution of leaders of the Arabs. The present concentrated rising is almost certain to result in the destruction of Turkish power throughout Arabia and Syria, from the Mediterranean to the Gulf of Aden. Turkey cannot spare a man to suppress the revolt. If the evacuation of Baghdad follows the loss of Mecca, the prestige of the Turk throughout the East will be damaged irreparably. The Austro-German armies along the Styr to the north and west of the Kolki are holding their own. Berlin and Vienna reports state that all Russian attacks on this sector have failed, and that farther south and west in the region of Sokol, the Teuton forces are making headway. Petrograd is more specific as to what is occurring on this part of the Bulgarian front. In the region west of Sokol, says the official Russian statement, we repulsed by a counterattack a German offensive and captured about 600 prisoners and some machine guns. In the same region, the enemy's heavy artillery launched gusts of fire from the region of Milsk. But if the appearance of German reinforcements with heavy artillery has stayed the Slav advance in the north along the Styr, a very different condition of affairs prevails in the south. Since the capture of Czernowitz last Saturday, the Russians have swept over Bukovina to the west and south of the capital. Petrograd reports the occupation of Radwutz, a town 30 miles south of Czernowitz, and the capture there of 1,022 prisoners. Austrian reports claim the repulse of Russian attacks 24 miles farther south. The occupation of the entire province appears to be a matter of a very few days only. Whether the Russians will try to break through the Carpathians into Hungary on this southern end of their line is not yet apparent. It is asserted that there are still large Austrian forces near the town of Sereth, surrounded by Russian troops. In that event, they must either cross the frontier into Romania and submit to internment, or surrender to General Lechitsky, whose army lies between them and the mountains. There was a fierce struggle yesterday morning in the neighborhood of Givenchy and the British front just north of La Bassée Canal. The Germans began it by exploding what the British official report speaks of as an exceptionally large mine. Following this, they bombarded the trenches and attacked on a narrow front. They entered the British lines, but were at once driven out with heavy losses by a very gallant and successful counterattack by the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. Considering the size of the mine and the intensity of the fire, the report adds, the British casualties were comparatively light. The Germans continue to go forward at a snail's pace southwest of Fort Vaux and Douaumont. Early yesterday morning, after several hours of continuous attack, during which they lost very heavily, they took some French first-line trenches in the wooded area of Fumay. This brought them a bit nearer Fort de Seville, but the midnight French report states that a counterattack carried out yesterday afternoon enabled General Nivelle's men to reoccupy a greater part of the trenches in which the Germans had gained a footing. A heavy bombardment against Hill 304 and Dead Man's Hill was followed early last night by an attack by the Germans on the French trenches between Hill 304 and Bethencourt Brook, but the enemy was completely repulsed. A bombardment of unprecedented violence began at 6 o'clock last night on the front south of Vaux and Douaumont. It was doubtless followed during the night by German infantry assaults. The French aviators, in reprisal for the bombardment of open towns behind the French lines, have dropped many bombs on Trèves, where a great fire broke out. Karlsruhe, the capital of Baden, and Mulheim. There was much aerial fighting, during which 4 German aeroplanes and 1 French machine were brought down. Archibald Hurd, one of the most well-informed naval experts in Great Britain, tells the leaders of the London Daily Telegraph and of the Globe today that the German high seas fleet, weaker by 5 capital ships, is so lame that it cannot move and so blind that it could not move if it dared to do so. The reference to the blindness of the German fleet is supplemented by the statement that out of 45 effective cruisers of all classes which Germany had built and was building when the war opened, she possesses today only 14, and of these a large proportion was so seriously injured in the Battle of Skagerrak as to be at present ineffective. A battle fleet without sufficient cruisers to act as scouts is a blind fleet. It is Mr. Hurd's opinion that the battle cruiser Hindenburg, as well as the Lutzow, was sunk in the recent action, and that Von der Tann also went down. 3 light cruisers, the names of which are not yet revealed, have been sunk, in addition to those officially reported by the German Admiralty. It looks as if Der Tag had come and gone. The Rome report states that on the Asiago Plateau, the Austrians are now almost altogether on the defensive and are strongly resisting the advance of the Italian Alpini. West of Lake Garda, there have been some lively actions in which the Italians repulsed Austrian attacks. This theater of war has ceased for the time to be of first-rate importance. The Italians lack enough heavy guns in the southern Trentino to go forward, as they were going before the Austrian rush, which resulted in the capture of no small part of the Italian heavy battery. It will be some time before this lack is made good. The conquest of Bukovina by the Russian proceeds without serious hindrance from the demoralized Austrian army, which evacuated Czernowitz a week ago and has been fleeing ever since. Petrograd reports the occupation of Visnitz just across the Bialy River from Kuti and of several villages west and south of Radwitz, the occupation of which was reported yesterday. The general direction of the Russian advance is still west, and it becomes apparent that the object is not so much the occupation of the territory of Bukovina as the cutting off of the Austrian railway communications in the Carpathians. There are but two lines of railway connecting Hungary with eastern Galicia across the Carpathians. They use the Kirlababa Pass, towards which the Russians are now racing, and the Verzeka Pass, some 50 miles farther northwest. The cutting of these two railways would greatly hamper the Austrians in providing food and supplies for the armies of Galicia, and throw an almost impossible amount of work upon the railways which cross the Carpathians in western Galicia by means of the Lupkov and Dukla passes. When the Russians undertook the conquest of Galicia in the winter of 1914-15, almost the first thing they did was to cut the Austrian railways in the Carpathian passes. That program is now being repeated, and on the present occasion, the advance is much, much more rapid. Bukovina, the occupation of which is almost completed, is not much bigger than some of Ontario's counties, having an area of about 4,000 square miles. It supports, however, on its fat lands no less than 814,000 people, mostly agriculturalists. They are chiefly of Romanian race and are indifferent to the change of masters. Bukovina and Transylvania were the portions of Austria-Hungary that Romania had expected as the price of her support for the cause of the Allies. But Romania has been on the fence too long, during which the doubtful part of the war to obtain much consideration from a triumphant Russia. At other points on the Eastern Front, conditions are unchanged. North of the Pripyat, the Germans have been attacking the Russian trenches without result. South of the marshes, the enemy, it is officially reported from Petrograd, continues to receive reinforcements from the French and Italian fronts. This information is of importance, for it is believed any large movement of German troops from the French front would be followed by a general British and French offensive there. Dutch correspondents say that the Germans are stripping their western trenches. Over 1,000 troop trains have passed through Aix-la-Chapelle, bound east during the past few days. Imagine the Somme is just around the corner. Verdun was in greater peril yesterday than at any other time since the siege began on February 21st. The Germans, who on Thursday night commenced to bombard the French positions upon the prolongation of the Douaumont and Beau Ridges, and in the wooded ravine lying between them, continued to pour a fire of unprecedented violence on the French works throughout the night. In the early morning, bringing up great bodies of infantry, the enemy attempted to storm the French lines along a front of over 5,000 yards between Hill 321 and the Damlou battery. The first assaults were beaten back, but the Midnight Paris report states that attacks with heavy effectiveness followed each other with extreme stubbornness, notwithstanding the enormous losses which our curtain of fire and machine guns entailed on the enemy. Between Hill 321 and Hill 320, the Germans succeeded in carrying our first line trenches and the Thiamont work. A powerful German attack, which had reached us as far as the village of Fleury, was repulsed by a violent counterattack. Attacks directed on the woods of Vaux, Chipitre, Fumay, and Chinois, and on the Damlouf battery were broken by our fire and completely repulsed. In this furious assault, both the Germans and the French have suffered serious losses. The French counterattack was an absolute necessity. Had the Germans been able to hold the village of Fleury, which is less than a half mile from Fort Souville, they would have had a strong vantage point from which to begin an attack on the inner line of Verdun's defenses. Had they broken through along the valley between Souville and the Froid de Terre forts, they would still have had to face the fire from the French positions on the hill of Belleville, but they would have turned the second line of the defense and rendered the continued occupation of Pepper Hill impossible. It is not unlikely that yesterday's German attempt to storm through the Souville lines will be followed by a change in the French defensive tactics. The enemy are getting dangerously close to Verdun. French aviators took advantage of the heavy concentrations of German infantry behind the northern front of Verdun on Thursday night to drop many bombs upon the railway stations as far north as Longuyon and upon the enemy's cantonments around Montfaucon. An ammunition depot was blown up and several outbreaks of fire were observed. The British report tells of much aerial and mining activity. The Germans set loose gas near Messines, but no infantry attack followed. There were 22 aerial combats in which the British lost 2 machines. British guns secured direct hits on 2 German anti-aircraft batteries, and the ammunition of one of them continued to explode for 20 minutes. A Turkish official report states that the Russian troops, which were attempting to descend into the Mesopotamian plain through the Pitek Pass, have been driven back in the direction of Arends. There is no report of an action of this sort from Petrograd, which states that in the Caucasus, the situation is unchanged. The most significant item in any of the reports from the front last night is that contained in the British headquarters statement, which says, "Today, our artillery continued very active on the whole front. There were mutual artillery actions at many points, the heaviest shelling being about Neuville, south of Vailly, and north of the Ypres-Menin road. The report also mentions an attempt to raid the British trenches near Luss, which failed, and the explosion of 4 enemy mines, which occasioned no casualties. The activity of the British artillery, which is noted also in the Berlin report as having broken out all along the front from La Bassée Canal to the Somme, would seem to be the preparation for an offensive movement. It is scarcely probable that what the German official report speaks of as an artillery bombardment by the British, which continued uninterruptedly during the whole of Saturday night, will cease without further developments. Before the last British attack on the Hulk, similar artillery activity continued for many hours. The discharge of gas from the British lines is also noted in German official reports. Recent official arrivals in Canada from the front have been telling of an accumulation behind the British lines of enormous quantities of gas. The signs are that the increasing pressure upon the French at Verdun has rendered it necessary to inaugurate a general forward movement along the front in northern France and Flanders. The extraordinary rumor which spread throughout Toronto yesterday regarding a great check to the Canadian forces at the front, coupled by heavy losses, is officially denied. The cruelty of spreading baseless rumors on Sunday when they cannot be speedily contradicted is beyond comprehension. Thousands of mothers in Toronto had their hearts wrung by the fear that in the supposed disaster their sons were involved. Don't worry, in a couple of days they're going to be. If the censorship at Ottawa is to be of any value to the country, lying rumors ought to be suppressed with the utmost vigor, and those who set them afoot prosecuted without mercy. The war will bring enough worry and heartbreak to the people of Canada without the unnecessary shock of false news under conditions such as existed in Toronto yesterday. Like I said, the Battle of the Somme's coming, man. The conflict of the northern Verdun front reaches a crisis. The fighting, which has been in progress for 3 days on the right bank of the river, continued during Saturday night, centering around Thiaumont fieldwork, where French counterattacks enabled General Nivelle's forces to retake some of the Frenches captured by the Germans on Thursday night. The French report states that some progress was made with hand grenades in the village of Fleury. At other points along the Verdun front, there was intense artillery fire, but no infantry actions during the course of yesterday. The midnight French official report states that at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the bombardment on the Fleury and Froid Duterre sectors was redoubled in violence. It is reasonably certain that sometime during last night, the Germans resumed their attempt to storm their way through the second line of defense in the valley between Douaumont and Vaux. The great bodies of men used in these assaults and the utter disregard showed for life indicate that the present effort is intended to be a supreme test of the power of the French army to defend Verdun. The occupation of the city of Kavala by the Allies proves that it is their intention to assail Bulgaria not only by an advance up the valley of the Vardar, but by another advance to the east, where the Rhodope Mountains will not prove a bar to the penetration of Bulgarian territory. The city would certainly not have been occupied merely as a naval precautionary measure. It would require the presence of strong allied forces to hold Kavala and that section of Grecian Macedonia, which projects along the Aegean shore between Bulgarian territory and the sea. The period of waiting in the Balkans is manifestly at an end. Active operations on a large scale will begin speedily. Official dispatches from Petrograd announced that the occupation of Kimpalong in the extreme southern part of Bukovina, the last important place in the territory remaining in Austrian hands, 2,000 prisoners were taken. A Viennese report asserts that while the Russians have been thus successful in southern Bukovina, an Austro-German encircling advance has forced the Russians out of Kuti, and that the further progress of the Tsar's army westerly through Galicia and Bukovina is stayed. The Petrograd official statements contradict sharply this assertion and state that Russian troops are pressing along the river Pruth towards Kolomia after having effectively occupied the whole of western Bukovina. Enormous quantities of stores have been taken in the territory, and what may prove even more valuable to the victors, in the railway station at Kipalong, whose whole trains were captured. Fierce fighting continues along the Volhynian front. Petrograd admits that to the northeast of Brody, a Russian force, which obtained a footing in the enemy's trenches, capturing 308 prisoners, was forced by the concentration of the German artillery fire to retire to its own position. It is stated that the prisoners were retained and that all subsequent counterattacks were repulsed. A Berlin report dealing with conditions in the same region states that 25 miles east of Vladimir Volyansky, strong Russian counterattacks against the German forward movement were unsuccessful, and that 30 miles west of Dubno, Russian attacks in considerable force were repeatedly repulsed. To the southwest of Lutsk, there has been a battle of a desperate nature in which the Germans attacked with great vigor, but encountered Russian resistance, which not only drove them out of the trenches penetrated by them, but forced them to give ground all along the front. The Russians took 800 unwounded prisoners, half of whom were Germans, and great number of Austrian and German dead were left in the trenches after the Russians had used the bayonet in clearing them out. It is clear that the Germans' counteroffensive makes no headway, and that all the Teutons have been able to do has been able to stay somewhat the rush of the Slavs. On both sides, unofficial reports speak of the fighting as desperate. The word is used in the Petrograd report officially to describe the action to the southwest of Lutsk. An Austrian submarine, it is announced, has torpedoed and sunk the Italian auxiliary cruiser City of Messina and the French torpedo destroyer Fourche in the Straits of Otranto, or maybe Fourche. Nothing is said about the loss of life on the city of Messina, but almost all members of the crew of the Fourche were saved. On the coast of the Black Sea, to the west of Trebizond, the Turks, who have been gathering in force for some time, launched an attack on Thursday, which the advance guard of the Russian army repulsed with heavy enemy losses. Many prisoners were left in the hands of the Russians. The Italian report mentions increasing artillery activity against the Austrian positions in the Pozina Valley and along the whole front on the Asiago Plateau. Evidently, many new guns have been brought up to take the place of those captured by the Austrians in the rush of a month ago. On the Isonzo front, it is stated that bold incursions of our infantry resulted in our capturing ammunition and some prisoners. There's no longer mention in these dispatches from the Trentino and the Isonzo of any Austrian offensive. The Italians and not the Teutons are now attacking. Okay, I'm just going to take a break for a second. Another crisis at Verdun has passed. It was generally expected that the Germans, having stormed their way to the outskirts of Fleury, would at once launch an attack in mass formation against the Front de Terre and Souville positions. They were probably harder hit in the battles of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday than at first supposed, for although they expended a prodigious quantity of shells on the French lines on Sunday night, the attack with which they followed up the bombardment west of the Thielmont work was completely repulsed, and the French, instead of giving ground, were able to go forward in the Fumain wood. The Paris report is issued last night states that on the front north of Verdun, there were no infantry actions during the day. The artillery fire diminished in intensity on both banks of the Meuse, but in the region of Hill 304, the bombardment was quite lively. It must not be supposed that the Germans have given up the attempt to take Verdun. The slackening of the bombardment may mean no more than a local scarcity of projectiles, which would not be surprising considering the unprecedented rate of consumption. Whatever it may be that delays the German offensive at Verdun works to the advantage of the Allies and gives them more time to complete their preparation for the general advance that all the military writers in touch with the situation regard as imminent. After holding Verdun with wonderful heroism and tenacity for over 4 months, the French army chiefs will assuredly not permit it to fall without attempting by large operations elsewhere to relieve the pressure upon its defenders. The Matin of Paris, which announces that Premier Briand spent Saturday and Sunday with Sir Douglas Haig at the British front, says the hour for action is here. Attack succeeds defense on many fronts. All right. Germany seems to regard the Allied offensive in the West as having begun. For Berlin reports officially that fighting of an important character has been in progress for 2 days on the northern sectors of the Western Front. Sir Douglas Haig's report does not indicate that the operations were of the serious nature Berlin supposes. The British artillery has been and is still smashing the hostile trenches, and the German lines were penetrated at 10 different places. The parties engaged in these forays inflicted considerable losses on the enemy and suffered relatively few. The report looks as if Sir Douglas Haig had been merely trying to see in what strength the German trenches are held and where they can be most easily penetrated. The Italian counterattack in the Trentino is proceeding vigorously, and on the Asiago Plateau, the Austrians are retiring even more quickly than they advanced 6 weeks ago. General Cadorna has concentrated large forces on the narrow front between the Bretma and the Adagi, and is headed uphill once more in the Sugana, Arsa, and Posina gorges. The weak resistance of the Austrians, who are abandoning their supplies, is partly due to the failure to bring their heavy artillery down into the foothills, doubtless because of the fear that the Italians might capture it during such a counter-offensive as Cadorna has now begun, and partly because some considerable portion of the Austrian army of the Trentino has been drawn off to the Galician front to prevent the great disaster in Volhynia and Bukovina from being repeated in front of Lemberg. Mr. Stanley Washburn, correspondent of the London Times, who has been visiting the battlefields on the front west of Lutsk, speaks in terms of the highest praise of the splendid valor of the Slavs in what he considers the fiercest and most courageous struggle of the entire war. The positions taken in the advance towards Kovel by Brusilov's troops were wonderfully fortified. The trenches were studded with redoubts, machine gun positions, and underground shelters, in some cases 20 feet deep, while the reserve positions, which in many places extended from half a mile to a mile in the rear, contained bomb-proofs, communication trenches, and shelters, which compared favorably with the lines in France. The Austrians regarded their positions as impregnable, but the young Russian troops took them in a single day's hard fighting after adequate artillery preparation. On the Kovel front, at least 2 Army Corps of Germans from the Western Front have been identified, and on the body of an Austrian officer was found a diary in which mention is made of the remarkable achievement of the Germans in having transferred an army corps from Verdun to Kovel in 6 days. There seems every reason to believe that the Western Front has been greatly weakened, what a bad time, by the need for German stiffening for the Austrian army of Volhynia. The German counteroffensive in the region makes no headway. Berlin yesterday claimed that 61 Russian officers and 11,097 men had been captured on the Styr front since June 16th. The Petrograd official statement says that on the Styr from Kolki to Sokol, the Germans are bombarding our trenches with heavy artillery and have attacked locally, but everywhere were successfully repulsed. On the Stockhod, also enemy massed formation attacks have been beaten back. The Russians are content for the time to hold the hard-fighting Germans in northern Volhynia while they complete the rout of the Austrians on the southern front. In Bukovina, it is officially reported officially they are making progress towards the passes leading to Transylvania. This is a new menace, and it is doubtful if the Austrian government has sufficient men in the Transylvanian passes to meet it. To the north, there have been sharp fighting on the Dniester in Galicia. The Cossacks headed for the Stanislaw and Kolomia crossed the river south of Bukaz and occupied 2 villages south of the Dniester, taking 355 prisoners. It is believed in Petrograd that these operations south of the Dniester will so seriously uncover Bothmer's right flank that he will be forced to abandon the lines west of Tarnopol and fall back even nearer to Lemberg. The Turks are attacking with considerable forces on the Mosul and Baghdad fronts, but although they had initial successes to the Russian counterattacks, drove them out of the Russian counterattacks drove them out of the captured positions. The Russians appear to be content to hold their ground here, probably waiting the cooperation of Sir Percy Lake's Tigris's army. It has been known for some time that the people of Bavaria and Saxony are greatly disturbed regarding the food situation and extremely restive under Prussian control of the food reserves of the German Empire. The rumblings of discontent in southern Germany have their counterpart in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, where the Magyars are on the point of refusing further aid to Austria in aggressive warfare on the Italian frontier, while she leaves Hungary unprotected against the Russian advance, which has again reached the passes of the Carpathians. A correspondent of the in the Trentino says that the retreat of the Austrian army there is partly due to it was a Italian newspaper, due to the profound dissatisfaction of the Hungarian troops. After the Russian offensive began, the men of the Hungarian regiments asked their officers to inform the commander-in-chief that they preferred to defend their own country rather than invade Italy. Some of these regiments have already been sent to the Eastern Front. Whatever the reason, and the keenness of the Italian reinforcements has much to do with the result of the reluctance of the Magyars, the Italians are recovering lost ground in the Trentino very quickly, along the 35-mile front on which the Austrians launched their May offensive. Official dispatches from Rome state that the Italians have crossed the Posina Brook, reoccupied Arcerio and Posina, and are now advancing north up the slopes towards the group of mountains of which Monte Maggio is the dominating peak. Farther to the east on the Sette Comuni Plateau, they are nearing the Asiago. This town is only 8 miles from the Austrian frontier, and at the present rate of progress, the Italians will have driven the Austrians back within, I'm going to pause again for a second, their own territory in 10 days more. The havoc wrought by the Austrians during their short stay on Italian soil has been great. Arcerio was destroyed by fire, and Asiago and many small villages have been reduced to smoldering ruins. The attempted invasion of Italy and overrunning of Venetia has failed, as have all the Teuton offensive campaigns on the Western Front since the occupation of Antwerp in the fall of 1914. The drive into Italy never passed the foothills of the Alps, and it cost the Austrians 150,000 casualties. As asserted by responsible Italian writers, it has been as ghastly a failure as the German attack upon Verdun. The men thrown away during the Verdun and Trentino offenses would have been of great value in purely defensive warfare on either the eastern or western fronts. Now, when the Allies begin to strike back on all sides, the Teutons have no reserves sufficient even for effective defense. Sir Douglas Haig's report again indicates greatly increased activity along the British front. During the night of Monday, southeast of the Ypres salient, near the Ypres-Menin Canal, a German attack was repulsed. On all the front, the report continues, our patrols were active, entering the German trenches at numerous points, inflicting casualties and capturing a few prisoners. 2 mines were exploded near Luss, and the Leicester Regiment, in connection with one of the explosions, made a successful raid, inflicting many casualties on the enemy. The British airplanes are very busy. The Germans, apprehensive of an attack at some selected point on the British front, are doing everything possible by aerial scouting to discover General Haig's plans. It is the business of the British aviators to keep the enemy so busily engaged in his own air that he will be unable to do much scouting over the British lines. On Monday, there were numerous combats on the German side. In the day's aerial operations, 4 German machines were brought down. 1 British airplane is missing. The value of aerial supremacy at present, when plans for great movements are being worked out in northern France, cannot be overestimated. Were German aeroplanes able to fly at will over the British cantonments and artillery parks? Whoa, what a term. There would be little hope of making the swift and secret concentration necessary to secure the breaking of the German front. The Paris Midnight Official Report tells of an attack on that part of the village of Fleury held by the French, which was completely repulsed. This was the only infantry action of any consequence along the French front. There was a bombardment of medium intensity during the day on both banks of the Meuse. In the Wouvre, to the southeast of Verdun, there was shelling of great violence. During Monday night, the French recovered some ground in front of the Thiaumont works. The situation in front of Verdun is still grave, but the enemy losses last week were so great that it will take time to bring the German troops in the first line trenches up to strength again. In the battle for Thiaumont and Fleury, 180,000 Germans took part out of a total of 460,000 enemy troops, now known to be on the Verdun front. The Russian official report states that the German offensive in the lake region north of the Pripyat marshes has broken down, and that the Russian troops again occupy their old positions after heavy fighting. South of the Pripyat, all goes well. The Germans are using heavy guns in the Lusk sector, but without favorable results to them as yet. In Bukovina, the Austrians are still on the run. The captures of Brusilov's armies from June 4th to June 23rd totaled 4,331 officers, 194,941 soldiers, 219 field guns, 644 machine guns. Ooh, that's a lot. And vast quantities of supplies. This total must have been materially increased during the last 5 days. 2 more to go. My God, my poor voice. Sir Douglas Haig continues to make feints all along the front feints, interesting. From La Bassée Canal to the point south of the Somme, where the British and French lines are joining. These nightly penetrations of the enemy's first line trenches after intense artillery fire are intended in the first place to keep the Germans guessing as to the direction from which the real stroke will come, and in the second place to discover the effect of the British bombardment upon the German trenches and their occupants. The report sent out from British headquarters last night tells of raids during which patrols entered the enemy's trenches at several points. Near Angers, on that part of the front between Arras and Lens, from which many observers believe that the great offensive will be launched. A raiding party found the enemy trenches badly damaged by shell fire and obtained evidence that their occupants had suffered from gas successfully discharged from the British trenches. Near Vermelles, The Highland Light Infantry raided the enemy's trenches, captured 46 prisoners and 2 trench mortars, destroyed 2 of the enemy's mining shafts, and returned with the loss of but 2 men. A continuation of these raids may be expected until sufficient information is secured as to the condition of the enemy's trenches to warrant the belief that an attack in force has good prospect of success. My God. It must be remembered that the points at which an endeavor is to be made to pierce the enemy's front were determined weeks ago, so that a sufficient number of large caliber guns and an ample supply of high explosive shells might be assembled. Reservoirs of gas had also to be provided, and hospital arrangements made for the wounded. All this has to be done with such secrecy as to keep the Germans guessing. The supply of munitions is probably ample now for any possible need. Mr. Hanneto, one of France's most trusted statesmen, says that the Allied production of munitions is at last in full swing. The French output surpasses all expectations. The British output goes ahead without a hitch. And from Petrograd comes news of intense activity in the greatly enlarged arsenals of Russia. An iron torrent, Mr. Hanneto calls the Allied output of shells, which may deluge the Central Empires. The pause at Verdun continues. On the west side of the Meuse, to the east of Hill 304, the Germans yesterday gathered in their trenches for an attack on the French front. This was reported by the French scouts, and the projected attack was frustrated by the fire of the French artillery. On the east side of the Meuse, the French recovered ground north of Hill 321 and on the edge of the Thielmont earthworks by bombing operations. The prediction made some time ago in Berlin that the German flag would fly over the citadel of Verdun before July 1st must be speedily fulfilled if it is not to be added to the long list of German boasts that have not been good. The Italians make progress despite the fact that they are now facing commanding positions and strongly organized defenses that will enable the Austrians to put up a stubborn resistance. The Italian advance is most successful in the center, where to the north of the Asiago Plateau, 3 formidable peaks have been recovered. In the Lagarina Valley also, down which the Austrians poured in the first rush of the invasion, the Italians are pushing forward. There has been sharp fighting between the Anglo-French army in northern Greece and the Bulgars, who attacked after a heavy artillery bombardment but were beaten off. The attitude of Romania is worrying the Bulgarian government, and it is believed that a very considerable part of the Bulgarian army is once more on guard along the Danube to ward off a sudden attack by the Romanians should they decide to enter the war on the side of the Allies. Heavy German reinforcements have been brought up to the Volhynian front, and actions of a most sanguinary character are being fought on that part of the front, east and southeast of Kovel. That city is being thoroughly prepared for defense. Many thousands of men are employed in the construction of trenches and fieldworks on the plains to the east of Kovel. At the same time, the Germans are launching vigorous counterattacks against Brusilov's positions. The Austrians claim the repulse of Russian attacks near Kuti. And that's it. I hope it went well. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.